Hey guys, Fletch Football Observer here, and today's video is going to be a Premier League review show reviewing Game 17 of the 2019-2020 Premier League season. This round of fixtures threw up some very interesting results, it threw up some great goals and a lot of talking points, and of course in this video I sum it all up, so without further ado, let's begin. We begin with the top versus bottom encounter as Liverpool continue to remain unbeaten this season following a 2-0 victory over Watford in what was Saturday's lunchtime fixture. The Reds broke the deadlock 7 minutes before half-time when a Reds counter-attack finished with Mohamed Salah cutting the ball onto his right foot and curling his shot into the corner. Watford had the best chances of the game though before and after that goal, but Abdoulaye Doucouré and Ismail Sarr both fluffed their lines before the Reds managed to kill the game off very late on when Divock Origi's scuffed shots kindly fell into the path of Salah and his clever flick found the back of the net. It's another 3 points for the Reds and it's their first home clean sheet of the season. A great win for Liverpool as well as another clean sheet, and to make the victory even sweeter, Leicester also dropped points in their game, so it now means the Reds are 10 points clear at the top of the table. The Reds now have a Carabao Cup quarter-final game with Aston Villa on the horizon, although that game will obviously field a team of youngsters for the Reds because their senior team will be preparing for the Club World Championships in Qatar. Now, as for Watford and Nigel Pearson though, he will be encouraged by what he saw. His side, his first game in charge of the club, it wasn't the entirely dominated performance that many people were expecting from Liverpool, and credit to Watford for that. And to be fair, if their finishing was a lot better, they could have actually took something from this game. They had plenty of chances to do so, didn't take them, and I'm sure that them kind of positives will be something that they take into their next game, which is against Manchester United next Sunday. We mentioned Leicester in our last segment with Liverpool, and coincidentally they're the focus of our next game. So, how did the Foxes lose ground on the league leaders? Well, the Reds will have Norwich to thank for that, following a 1-1 draw that played out at the King Power Stadium between the Foxes and the Canaries. Norwich drew first blood when Emil Buendia put Teemu Pukki through on goal and the Finnish striker drilled his shot beyond Kasper Schmeichel. The Foxes equalised those 7 minutes before half-time when James Maddison's corner was met by Jamie Vardy, and his header, which was going wide initially, was inadvertently pushed into his own net by Tim Krul, which obviously then went down as a Tim Krul own goal. Neither side could then go on to find a winner, meaning that both sides were forced to share the spoils. Well, for Leicester, their 9-game winning streak ends, but it now turns into a 9-game unbeaten streak instead. As I said, they do lose ground on league leaders Liverpool, with the gap between the two clubs now extending to 10 points. And their next game is set to be another exciting encounter when the Foxes clash with Manchester City away from home on Saturday's evening fixture. Whilst for Norwich, a good point to pick up away from home, it adds to their survival bid of course, but now they have to turn their attention to their next game, which is against Wolves on Saturday. Our next game saw Mason Greenwood come off the bench to rescue a point for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Manchester United following a 1-1 draw with Everton at Old Trafford. Everton took the lead in the first half when Leighton Baines' corner wasn't dealt with by David De Gea and it brushed his hand as he attempted to punch the ball, and it carried on travelling until it hit Victor Lindelof and went in off the Swedish defender. United didn't respond until the 77th minute when Greenwood showed great composure to strike the ball home and set up an interesting finale. However, neither side could go on to find the winner, so both had to settle for a point apiece. A good point for Everton in the sense of the amount of unfortunate injuries and absences that they managed to pick up before the game, and for Duncan Ferguson, he is doing his chances of maybe being considered for the Everton managerial role on a permanent basis no harm at all by picking up a point here. Will he be in charge of the Toffees next game, which is against Arsenal next week? Only time will tell. As for United, a little bit of a come down from last week's back-to-back victories against Tottenham and Manchester City, but this result does mean the Red Devils are unbeaten in their last 6 games and will look to stretch it to 7 next week when they take on Watford on Sunday. Next, we're at St Mary's, where Sebastian Haller proved to be the difference maker on the day as West Ham picked up a very important 3 points over fellow relegation candidates Southampton with a 1-0 victory to slightly ease the pressure on Manuel Pellegrini, at least for another week. The only goal of the game came in the first half when a good West Ham move was finished off when Pablo Fornals knocking down the ball to Sebastian Haller and the striker turned the ball home. Mikel Antonio thought he had doubled the Hammers' lead in the second half when he fired home, but VAR ruled out the goal after it was revealed the ball had hit his hand in the build-up, and from there Southampton couldn't go on to find an equaliser regardless, and it was West Ham who came away with the win and the 3 points. A much needed victory for West Ham. It will slightly ease the pressure on both the club and their manager Manuel Pellegrini. However, as we've seen, a poor result in their next game and that pressure could easily be put back onto them. Their next game in question doesn't take place until Boxing Day though, so they'll have a good couple of weeks to rest and figure out a plan for that. And their opponents on that day will be Crystal Palace. As for Southampton, another loss to a fellow relegation rival, and suddenly the pressure seems to be back on the club and even their manager Ralph Hasenhüttl following a spell of fairly good results in recent weeks. Their next game is now even more important as they take on yet another relegation rival in the form of Aston Villa away from home on Saturday. Our next game saw a late Jan Vertonghen goal ensure victory for Jose Mourinho's side Spurs as they came out 2-1 winners over Wolves on Sunday at Molineux. Lucas Moura opened the scoring inside the opening 10 minutes when he weaved his way into the penalty area before lashing the ball into the back of the net. Wolves equalised in the second half when Adama Traore's strike from outside the penalty area found its way into the back of the net. The game seemed to be heading for a draw until Vertonghen in the final stages of the game headed home a Christian Eriksen corner as Spurs took the 3 points and claimed 5th place in the table. A good win for Spurs this, they got the 3 points, they moved up to 5th and in the process they ended Wolves' 11 game unbeaten run. And looking ahead to next week, they have a real chance to go level on points with 4th place Chelsea as those two clubs meet in a London derby on Sunday as Jose Mourinho returns to face his former club. As for Wolves, their unbeaten run comes to an end. They certainly had the chances, they just couldn't take them in this game. And of course, 2 very good Spurs goals have proved to be the difference maker on the day. Wolves will look to bounce back next week when they take on Norwich on Saturday. Our next game saw Kevin De Bruyne steal the show as his masterclass performance helped Manchester City to a 3-0 victory over Arsenal at the Emirates. Within the opening couple of minutes, City broke the deadlock when Gabriel Jesus' cross found De Bruyne on the penalty area and his lethal finish found the back of the net. City doubled their lead on the quarter-hour mark when De Bruyne turned from goalscorer to provider, squaring the ball for Raheem Sterling to sweep home. De Bruyne then got his second and City's 3rd goal of the afternoon when he curled a left-footed shot into the corner of the net. And from there, the second half saw the game over as a contest. City saw the game out comfortably. Only thing missing from this game was probably a De Bruyne hat-trick, but City got the 3 points and closed the gap on Leicester to 4 points. A good and comfortable win for City here. The fixture wasn't much of a contest in all honesty, and it was that superb performance by Kevin De Bruyne who ran it like a training session that stole the spotlight. As mentioned, City closed the gap to Leicester to 4 points, and coincidentally, that's who they have in their next fixture when they clash with the Foxes next Saturday evening. And as for Arsenal, a shocking display all round. The only players that I think can come out of this display with any kind of credit will be Bernd Leno, who managed to keep the score down to 3, and Gabriel Martinelli, who attempted to try and make something happen for the Gunners, but ultimately it was a terrible performance all round for everybody else. And for Arsenal, they'll be looking for a response when they face Everton next week, but I think the question still remains of whether or not Freddie Ljungberg will still be in charge for that game. Our next game saw Bournemouth end their 5-game losing streak with a 1-0 victory over Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. There were chances at both ends throughout the game, but eventually the breakthrough wasn't made until the final 10 minutes of the game. Chelsea failed to deal properly with a Cherry's corner, and the ball eventually came to Dan Gosling in the penalty area, and he hooked a shot that looped over Kepa Arrizabalaga in the Blues' goal, and despite the best efforts of Cesar Azpilicueta to try and clear it off the line, the ball had already crossed it, And initially the goal was ruled out for offside against the midfielder, but on replay and with VAR's interference, the goal was allowed to stand as it was clear that he wasn't actually offside, and Bournemouth managed to hold on from that point for a much needed victory and of course 3 important points. A much needed victory for Bournemouth. They may have been dealt a bunch of injuries to key players before the game, but they rallied well together, fought back and got the much needed victory, and now they'll look to make it back-to-back wins next week when they entertain Burnley at the Vitality Stadium. Whilst for Chelsea, another poor result in what has been a pretty poor patch for the Blues in recent weeks, with only 1 win in their last 5 games. Back-to-back losses now, and their next game doesn't come any easier as a London derby is on the horizon when they clash with Tottenham, now managed of course by their former manager Jose Mourinho, on Sunday. Sheffield United picked up back-to-back wins in the league following a 2-0 victory over Aston Villa at Bramall Lane in our next game of focus. It was a really dull and uneventful first half, but eventually the game sprung into life shortly after the restart when John Fletch put their home side in front. Fletch doubled his and United's goal tally for the afternoon later on in the half with a good finish following David McGoldrick's clever flick over the defence to release him on a goal. Villa had the chance to get back into the game later on, however they failed to take their chance when they were awarded a penalty for a handball against John Egan, but Jack Grealish stepped up and couldn't convert from 12 yards as he saw his spot kick cannon off the crossbar as United held on for the clean sheet, the victory and the 3 points. Another great victory for the Blades and their superb season continues. This team have been incredible this season so far, and full credit goes to the team, the fans and the staff of Sheffield United for making it happen and overperforming this season so far. They'll look to continue their good run of form when they go on to face Brighton at the Amex Stadium next week. As for Villa though, their poor away form continues, and now no win in their last 4 games. They need to begin finding some real good form soon with some really big fixtures on the horizon for them. We're starting off with a home game against fellow relegation candidate Southampton. Of course, that is following a Carabao Cup tie against Liverpool midweek. And in the penultimate game on this list, a second half Chris Wood goal proved to be the difference maker as Burnley ended a 3-game losing run to defeat Newcastle 1-0 at Turf Moor. The game's only goal of the game came just before the hour mark when Wood headed home an Ashley Westwood corner, and from there Burnley managed to see the game out. The stat of the game, by the way, was that Newcastle failed to register a single shot on target in this game, and that, of course, that led to Newcastle's defeat, Burnley's victory, and they can have Chris Wood to thank for that. A great win for Burnley, a good 3 points to pick up, and also a good way to end their losing run. The inconsistent season continues, and the same can be said for Newcastle in all honesty, as simultaneously their 3-game unbeaten run ends as well. These 2 yo-yo clubs will be in action again on Saturday, with Burnley facing an away trip to Bournemouth, whilst Newcastle entertain Crystal Palace on the same day. And finally, Monday night saw 2 stunning goals take centre stage as Crystal Palace and Brighton played out a 1-1 draw at Selhurst Park. Brighton had the better of the chances but didn't make their pressure play until 10 minutes after the interval when Neil Maupay received the ball in space in the penalty area and he fired his shot into the top corner to open the scoring. However, for all of Brighton's chances, they couldn't put the game to bed, and in the end they were punished by Palace when Wilfried Zaha lashed his effort beyond Matt Ryan in the Seagulls' goal in stunning style to end the game as a draw, rescue a point for Palace as it remained 1-1 until the final whistle. Unfortunate for Brighton that they couldn't hold on for the victory. They had some very good opportunities to do so, but they just couldn't take their chances, and in the end a stunning Wilfried Zaha goal cost them 2 points. They'll be hoping for better luck next time when they take on Sheffield United on Saturday, whilst for Palace, not their greatest of games performance-wise, but once again they find that moment of inspiration, that moment of magic that makes them take something from this game. and they too will be looking to continue to build upon their good season so far next time out when they travel to face Newcastle on Saturday. And that wraps up this Premier League review show for Game 17 on the 2019-2020 season. Guys, if you have any thoughts or comments on any of this round's major talking points or results, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to read them. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League review show, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.